Would you trust your life to a company that has been accused of putting profits above safety and yet continues to sell millions of tickets every month? This question may seem exaggerated, but after seeing what some American airlines are doing in 2025, you might start to look at travel in a very different way. One of them charges more than $100 for a carry-on bag and even trains employees to pressure passengers at the gate. Another canceled more than 16,000 flights in just a few days and left entire families sleeping on the airport floor. No explanation, no refunds. And there are those that, even though they are considered premium, are no longer able to deliver even the basics: punctuality, comfort, and respect. Today, you will learn about the 5 most hated airlines in the United States. And it's not just public opinion. There are concrete data, drops in reputation rankings, complaints, videos of angry passengers, and a pattern that repeats itself, promising a lot, delivering little. If you travel frequently, or even if you only travel once a year, this video could save you from a traumatic experience. And I guarantee you, the last one on the list will surprise you, because it sells itself as reliable. But what's behind the curtain, almost no one sees. Frontier Airlines. If you've ever flown with Frontier, this part of the video might bring back some memories, and not very good ones. Frontier became one of the most hated airlines in the United States in 2025, and look, it wasn't by chance. Many people buy the ticket thinking they're getting a good deal because the price seems low, almost irresistible. But the problem starts right after clicking buy. It's as if the fare is just the beginning of the nightmare. Carry-on luggage? There's a fee. Choosing a seat? Yet another fee. Want to board early because you're with a child or have mobility issues? Guess what? Yet another fee. And the most absurd thing is that serious allegations have begun to surface that the airline's own employees are being encouraged to charge passengers as much as possible at the boarding gate. That's right, as if it were a commission for each charge made there and then, when the person is already stuck. There were people who arrived at the gate thinking that everything was fine with their luggage, and at the last minute were forced to pay an extra $100 just to take a carry-on bag on the flight. And there's no point in complaining, because the company's customer service has practically disappeared. Complaints made over the phone are not answered, and even those who try to resolve the issue online end up stuck in a maze of forms and automatic responses. And doesn't stop there. In several passenger satisfaction surveys conducted in 2025, Frontier was always at the bottom of the list. In one of them, by ACSI, the airline had the lowest score of all those evaluated. This means that thousands of Americans were either deceived or frustrated with the experience of flying with them. And when we talk about flying, the least we expect is safety, basic comfort, and respect. But what we see on Frontier is a constant feeling that you are being squeezed for every penny, as if the passenger were just an opportunity for quick profit. So, if you're thinking about saving money on a Frontier flight, it's worth thinking about. What's cheap can end up being much more expensive and frustrating than you think. Want to continue your trip with us? Because the next airline on the list also has stories that no one tells you until it's too late. Spirit Airlines. Spirit will remain among the most criticized airlines in the United States in 2025. And it's not just because of its ultra-low-cost model. The problem is everything that comes after the cheap ticket. The company continues to charge for absolutely everything: seat, baggage, even water. This has become routine. But what has increasingly bothered passengers is the constant delays, cancellations without notice, and how the company deals with these problems. In 2025, Spirit registered one of the worst punctuality rates in the country, according to data from Department of Transportation. Many flights are delayed by more than an hour, and when they are canceled, customer support practically disappears. Some people have been left stranded at airports, unable to reschedule or request a refund. And this happens because Spirit's customer service is one of the worst rated. The phone doesn't answer, automatic chats don't solve anything, and endless lines at the counters. It's as if, when the problem arises, the company leaves the passenger alone. Another serious point is the aircraft condition. Reports of damaged seats, broken lights, out-of-service bathrooms, and even air conditioning problems are becoming commonplace. And all of this inside a cramped cabin, where the space between rows is some of the smallest in commercial aviation. The flying experience is also stressful. By 2025, cases off conflicts between crew and passengers, with videos circulating of situations in which elderly and disabled people were treated rudely. Instead of dealing with this seriously, the company often ignores the complaints, which only worsens its reputation. In the research of J.D. Power, Spirit was among the last placed, with very low scores for comfort, service, and problem resolution. And on sites like Trustpilot and BBB, complaints continue to accumulate, almost always with the same pattern: company failure and customer abandonment. In other words, what was once just a cheap company has now become synonymous with disorganization, disrespect, and frustration. And with so many recurring problems, many people are preferring to pay a little more than risk an experience with Spirit. American Airlines. In 2025, American Airlines is increasingly frustrating passengers, and the problems are visible as soon as boarding. The airline has faced a real increase in delays and cancellations, especially on domestic flights. And the worst part, when something goes wrong, the support just doesn't work. It is common for passengers to spend hours without being able to reschedule, without a clear refund, and without speaking to a human attendant. Furthermore, operational errors basics have become frequent. One of the most talked about cases was the sending of the wrong aircraft to an airport that could not support landing, leaving passengers stranded at the terminal with no alternative for almost an entire day. Another point of constant criticism is customer service. Anyone trying to resolve a problem, whether by phone or at the counter, finds automatic responses, lack of empathy, and bureaucracy that leads nowhere. Elderly passengers, in particular, have reported feeling ignored or treated impatiently. Inside the cabin, the situation has also worsened. Flights are more crowded. The space between seats has decreased on several routes, and onboard service has been reduced, even on long flights. Those who are used to flying frequently notice that the experience level has dropped, but prices keep rising. Bottom line, American Airlines now charges like a premium airline, but delivers an increasingly disorganized, impersonal, and stressful experience. Southwest Airlines. Many people still associate Southwest with the idea of a friendly airline, with easy boarding and good-natured employees. But in 2025, that image is no longer convincing. Southwest has lost much of the trust it built over the years, and this has directly affected the experience of those who travel with it. The root of the problem lies in what happened at the end of 2022, when a system failure caused the cancellation of more than 16,000 flights. The company promised changes, but the repercussions of this collapse are still present. Passengers continue to report frequent delays, sudden cancellations, and, mainly, lack of assistance when something goes wrong. In 2025, Southwest appeared on 73RD in the Axios Harris Poll reputation rankings, one of the worst declines among all the companies evaluated. This is reflected in practice. When there is a problem on the flight, the response is usually slow, poorly coordinated, and the passenger is often left with no alternative, especially those traveling with a connection or at night. Another point that has irritated many passengers is the unmarked seating model, which was once seen as something positive, but which today generates anxiety and confusion. On crowded flights, there are fights for space, passengers separated from their families, and a lot of rushing around when boarding to try to get a good seat. Additionally, passengers have complained about lack of clarity about compensation. Even in situations where Southwest is required to cover hotel or food, there are reports of refusal or neglect, especially with elderly passengers or those who are not very tech-savvy. In practice, those who choose Southwest expecting a hassle-free experience often end up facing chaos, lack of organization, and feeling of abandonment when you need it most. United Airlines. United still carries the weight of old scandals, but what keeps on the most hated list in 2025 isn't the past. It's the problems that keep repeating themselves day after day, directly affecting those who fly with the airline. One of the most criticized points is the frequency of delays, especially on domestic flights. According to data from Department of Transportation, United is among the airlines with higher volume of flights outside the scheduled timetable. And these are not just minor delays. There are routes where the average delay exceeds 45 minutes, and this has affected connections, appointments, and even important events for passengers. Furthermore, the customer service is one of the most criticized among large American companies. When a cancellation occurs, many passengers report difficulty in getting support. The lines for in-person service are long, and digital channels do not always work as they should. Many people end up spending hours trying to resolve something simple, and with no guarantee of a solution. The experience inside the planes doesn't help either. Despite operating with modern aircraft on some routes, comfort in economy class remains below average. Little space, hard seats, and minimal onboard service are constant complaints, especially on longer flights. In 2025, United appears in 69th in the Axios Harris Poll reputation rankings, behind several companies that do not even operate in the airline industry. This shows that the problem goes beyond operations. It is a question of image and trust. Passengers simply do not feel valued. And there is still one factor that has irritated many people: feeling that the company prioritizes profit over experience. Frequent changes in mileage rules, hidden fees, more expensive upgrades, and little flexibility in rescheduling flights have even frequent flyers reconsidering their loyalty to the airline. The truth is that in 2025, flying with United means, for many, accept discomfort, uncertainty, and increasingly impersonal service. And this, in an increasingly competitive market, has a high price: the loss of trust from the average passenger. So, after all this, do you still have the courage to buy the cheapest ticket without checking the company? The truth is that today, more than ever, traveling requires attention. Because what's at stake is not just your money. It's your time, your patience, and in many cases, your dignity as a passenger. These 5 companies continue to sell millions of tickets a year. But at what cost? The frustration of those who have had their luggage charged at the gate, a flight canceled without warning, or spend hours waiting for service, shows that the problem is real and is far from being resolved. Now I want to know from you, what was the worst experience you ever had with an airline? Comment below, and if you've never had a problem, also comment on which company you still trust. If this video helped you in any way, subscribe to the channel. Here we tell the truth, without beating around the bush, straight to the point, with everything you need to know before traveling. And of course, leave a like if you think more people need to know about this. See you in the next video, because what's behind the cheap tickets, almost no one tells you.